Can you hear me? There we go. 7 o'clock in Gardner, Kansas. Call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Looks like mostly city and newspaper as well, so thank you for joining us. I do have a proclamation, and we'll start with that. All right. Well, this is for Fair Housing Month. So, whereas the Fair Housing Act enacted on April 11th, 1968, enshrined into federal law the goal of eliminating racial segregation and ending housing discrimination in the United States, and whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, sex, familial status, national origin, and disability, and commits recipients of federal funding to affirmatively further fair housing in their communities, and whereas the City of Gardner is committed to the mission and intent of Congress to provide fair and equal housing opportunities for all, and whereas our social fabric, the economy, health, and environment are strengthened in diverse, inclusive communities, and whereas more than 50 years after the passage of the Fair Housing Act, discrimination persists and many communities remain segregated, and whereas acts of housing discrimination and barriers to equal housing opportunity are repugnant to a common sense of decency and fairness. Now therefore it be resolved that I, Todd Winters, Mayor of the City of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2022 as Fair Housing Month in the City of Gardner, Kansas, as an inclusive community committed to fair housing and promoting appropriate activities by private and public entities to provide and advocate for equal housing opportunities for all residents and prospective residents of the City of Gardner. Thank you. I'm sure how I would present this.
I can take it.
All right. Would you like to take a picture with me? No? All right. Our next presentation, 2023-2024 budget policy. Matt, you are on stage. And before we begin, Councilman Van Potter, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I've got you good.
Awesome. He's joining us through Zoom today.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tonight's presentation is on budget policy. If you remember at the last meeting, or last budget presentation was on the capital improvement program. This one focused more on the operating budget and kind of changes we see coming to the operating budget in terms of significant dollar changes or new budget initiatives. So during this presentation, I'll also be covering the Gardner Cemetery Association budget request for 2023, and then those kind of operating budget requests and initiatives, and they'll be aligned with the council's established strategic priorities. The Gardner Cemetery Association is asking for an increased request for the 2023 budget for a total of $39,502. The reason I'm giving this item to you today is we already covered outside agencies at a prior meeting, but they were still in their budget process, so now we have this information. And the reason for the increase is they basically are seeking an increase in cost for grounds maintenance, and that's what is reflected in the budget request. Staff is requesting several new positions. In 2022, there's a lead utility billing specialist for finance, a park superintendent, an IT specialist 1, an asset management coordinator in utilities department. And then 2023 budget includes a police clerk, and 2024 budget includes a police officer. If approved, we'll likely start the hiring process for the 2022 revised positions in October. The impact on 2022 will be minimal because the positions could take some time to fill. The estimated salary amounts reflect the annual cost of the position at the midpoint of the range. Promotion and reclass requests include, in 2022, a payroll clerk to payroll coordinator, staff engineer, which is a vacant position, to senior engineer. And the purpose behind that request is to give us flexibility in hiring, so when we're recruiting the engineer, we can place them into the appropriate category based on their experience. And then we've also taken a look at the water plant and wastewater plant superintendents, and based on our analysis of that position, we believe it should be in pay grade 7, not pay grade 6. So we'd basically bump them up a pay grade and then also a 5% increase. There are no promotion or reclass requests currently for 2023 or 2024. In 2021, we established the Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Fund. The funding mechanism for that is annual contributions from departments and funds to the VERF based on the replacement cost, the useful life of the asset, and also an inflation factor. Please note that this doesn't include the electric utility or police department vehicles and equipment. Those kind of have their own specialized replacement schedules. This slide shows the 5-year plan for VERF. The city plans to carry a balance of approximately $150,000 in future years to cover emergency or out-of-cycle replacements, and then also to cover increased costs due to inflation or supply chain issues. Each year, the planned replacements will be reviewed to ensure they meet replacement requirements. The water utility is also requesting in 2023 a new trailer jetter, and then in 23 and 24 spare lift station pumps. The electric utility is requesting a new skid steer mower, a mower, and a snowplow in 2023. And also, they're planning to replace dump truck number 408. In 2024, they're requesting a new compact excavator. And then we also have to do kind of periodic electric system and infrastructure testing. For 2023, we have transformer testing scheduled, and in 2024, we have relay testing scheduled. We're starting a new IT server replacement program. It's funded at $39,000 each year, starting in 2022. And then, although it's not an operating budget request, I've added in the 167th Street corridor. We're currently looking at, we know there's large portions of 167th Street that are in poor condition, and that we have a lot of planned development along that corridor. And that will accelerate the need for an additional lane. Staff is currently evaluating the best way to schedule the improvements to this street and how to position the city for grants. We know that a preliminary design will cost by around $350,000 to $400,000. We're also looking at doing some rehab on some of the worst parts of the street this year, and that will buy us some time before we have to do the reconstruction. And we'll have more information at a future budget meeting on this project. Under economic development, most of our economic development initiatives are in the CIP, but there is a noticeable change in the meters and material line items in the operating budget. These large increases are kind of due to anticipated growth. And then also having a larger inventory will help minimize project delays due to supply chain issues or long lead times. Under quality of life, we have the park facility maintenance program. This budget initiative could be considered asset management as well as quality of life. These programs will help improve the quality of life or quality of park and recreation spaces by replacing shelter structures, shelter flooring, and trash cans that are in poor condition. Some initiatives under fiscal stewardship. As we discussed at a previous meeting, we're looking at our wastewater rates. We'll continue to evaluate those as we go through this budget process. At that meeting, council also directed us to review the electric rates, so we're taking a look at those as well. And then we're also going to review the system development fees and how those fit into the utility rate structures. We're also planning to move the meter services group to the utilities department in 2023 or 2024. Currently, this work group is under finance and utility billing services. We believe moving them to Utilities Department will help address labor shortages through better coordination and cross-training between meter services and line maintenance personnel. This would also involve splitting the meter reader position into Meter Technician 1 and Meter Technician 2 based on years of experience in backflow certification. There's no budget impact at this time. There are no current staff that meet the requirement to move into Meter Technician 2. The purpose behind this new job title description is to give an incentive to employees to get additional certification so that they can support the line maintenance group. And the idea is this change would take place after we've constructed the new line maintenance building, which is scheduled for 2023. So next steps, we're looking for some direction from council on these kind of budget initiatives. And then also this is an opportunity for council to mention any new priorities or initiatives they might have. We'll be getting the revenue neutral rate on June 15th from the county. And then we'll take the feedback from tonight and any new initiatives you have and build them into the budget and come back on June 20th. Then July 5th will be a big meeting. That's where we need direction on the mill levy.
Thank you, man. Council.
But I'll let Mark go first because he usually has more than I have.
Will address.
Okay, all right. Can we go back on the slide to the there's a couple things I want to talk about. One was the meters, but let's go back over to IT. I want to see that. Okay, so we've got an IT server replacement program of $39,000 each year. What is the scope of that replacement program? Is it to manage the cabinets, what's in there, and basically replace the equipment? And is it a full replacement or just a partial replacement? Is it phased in? Because it seems $39,000. I've priced out servers before. It seems a little high, but if I could get some clarification on that, that'd be great.
I believe Charles has some answers for you.
Hey, Charles.
Good evening, Mayor, governing body. So on your screen now, this is all of our servers and switches that we currently have. This building, all of our outlying buildings. If you will look fourth line through the, well, yeah, 4 through 6 lines, you see the UCS there. That's our unified computing system for the Cisco side of things. Those aren't just plain servers. Those hold all of our virtual servers.
Sure.
Their last data support is February of 2024. These are the same devices that we've had in place since AOS did our restructuring in 2015.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at this point, they're already pretty old, and they need to be replaced.
So you're going to replace all 3 then with this next allocation?
Probably not all at the same time, no. We need our firewall replaced too, which also goes in with this. That's our ASA that's listed on line 14.
Okay.
Its end date is actually August this year. So that needs to be replaced. I mean, that number could go down as the years go by.
Sure.
But initially, I think that's a...
So we're playing catch up here, right?
Yes, sir.
Because of the fact that we have obsolete equipment that hasn't been replaced in 7 years.
Yes, sir. None of our firewalls have IDS on them, IPS, none of that stuff. So that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
It's a little above my pay grade. But
No,
but
I'm tracking with what Charles is saying.
I know you are. I'm just wondering, is it something? I mean, firewalls seem important. Is it something we need to expedite or?
We're okay right now. If we can do it by the end of the year, we'll be all right.
The provisional license from is this Cisco?
Yes.
Okay.
That goes into the $39,000 because there's software that comes along with it. And there's
Yep.
licensing that goes along with it. And
I know how expensive it is. So these are I'm assuming these are VMware virtual servers.
yes,
So you have a VMware Hypers.
we have Veeam, we have Veeam servers, all that.
Okay. All right. That explains the 30,000. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Knowledge and
No.
That's good.
I speak geek. So let's go back over to the.
Man, I expect you to build it.
Let's go up a couple of pages. I want to talk about the meter positions here. Okay, so is this being driven because of the fact that we have put in the smart meters and now we're going to have technicians manage that? Or is this something else? Because it seems to me that, particularly around the positions themselves, how we're managing those slots.
Good question.
Is it-
If you remember when we implemented the smart meter program, we
Yeah.
actually phased out 2 positions. We used to
Yes,
have
you
4
did.
meter readers, now we have 2.
Correct.
Occasionally when we have labor shortages, line maintenance has been fantastic, coming over and providing additional support. We just realized those 2 groups work close together. It'd be good for them to have a even closer working relationship, and then also meter readers could have some career opportunities back, or getting additional training to basically support line maintenance when they need help.
Okay, that
And
makes some sense.
And the real idea here is by having this closer coordination is we can avoid having to add additional staff by cooperation between the 2 groups, basically.
The last one I had was the Parks and Rec, the 2 years of Parks and Rec maintenance,
Mhm.
at $70,000 apiece. Does this supplement the parks budget, or is that something different?
This is basically a maintenance program that's being added into the operating budget to replace like shelter flooring and like the shelters themselves. And also there's some pretty expensive trash cans around the area as well. That's different than the CIP project for the accessible parks.
Okay, so we've got accessible parks, we've got standard parks maintenance that
Mhm.
is, your groundskeeping and your managing your playgrounds and things like that. Correct. I mean that's
Correct.
covered under Parks Impact.
It's kind of a dual approach because we know there's some. We've been evaluating the condition of our parks, and we have kind of this 2-pronged approach. One with the accessible parks through CIP, and then also this kind of regular thing for shelters. And the idea is to improve our public spaces for the community.
Yes, and I totally agree with that. However, I'm wondering if 70,000 is a little low, particularly given what we know are certain urgent aspects of our parks system that are in somewhat disrepair, and whether or not we have something that's mentioned for the next 2-year cycle about starting to address those issues, understanding that we have some shortcomings there.
Yeah, and I believe Jason's kind of gotten his quotes and stuff, so I think that's where he's getting this number. He's looking at 2 to 5 years of preventative, kind of trying to these replacement programs of the trash cans. We have 3 major park shelter structures that are in major disrepair with rot and
Mhm.
things are in need replaced. So
Yeah.
I think those are the big things making up the majority of these dollars.
So to piggyback that, if it's a replacement, sounds like it fit more as a CIP. Is this then to supplement that going forward so that we don't get back in the same situation?
It depends on the dollar amount for the actual improvements. Like CIP usually is like $25,000 that we expect to be over $25,000 for a single improvement. This could be like multiple improvements like throughout multiple parks. Like it's not necessarily all at one location in 1 year.
Park question.
But it would help avoid future CIP projects probably.
I'm all right with upping our maintenance budget because it's been low for a long time. We've seen the results of it. I get the sense that we'll probably be in a position in 2 or 3 years where we're going to have another catch-up phase with our parks. This isn't it. So just something to keep in mind for our next budget cycle. It's 2025, I believe, and to have that on the radar, probably pull it towards the front burner actually. That's all I had. Councilman D.
My main one was about the park maintenance fee. I wanted to know more details about that, but I think we talked about it. Thank you.
Councilman Ben Potter.
Actually, every question that I had has been covered.
Okay.
Not yours, Mark.
Okay, so on the utility departments for the equipment, to make sure that we have enough and that we're not running low going forward, and also the VERF, how do we calculate those numbers? I mean, obviously we don't want to be where we're behind, so I understand the need to do this. But are we basing it off of the last 3 typical
Callan, can you provide a little bit?
How about Verb? Right, how do we get 150,000 as a surplus that we want to hit?
So the intention of keeping that 150,000 in there is pretty much to cover if, say, we had one of our larger vehicles go down in between cycles, so that we would have enough reserve there to say, okay, we lose a dump truck right before the snow season, we would have a reserve capable of covering that in between, outside of just kind of the yearly buy purchase. So the annual purchase would be based on essentially VERF score in order of worst to first, essentially. Also taking into account the other things such as the vehicle reached its usable life in one of several categories, whether it's operating hours or mileage or age of equipment, as well as also taking into account somewhat the capital gain that we can recover from that vehicle as we dispose of it. Right now, we've gone long enough that the list of vehicles for this year's buy is probably far enough gone that we're not going to get much back in capital gain. And at this point, next year, well, because the FY21 VERF payment was authorized, but we didn't do a buy until this year, we've kind of got an extra year's worth right now. So we're going to recover quite a bit of our overdue vehicles.
So what criteria would we use for taking the worst piece of equipment on the VERB in 1 year versus we got to take money out of the reserve? Right, it just stops tomorrow and we can't fix it, or well, it's the worst one, it's due this year anyway, let's just go ahead and do it 8 months early.
Typically, we would use the reserve if it's a vehicle that we need a full replacement on. Otherwise, say an engine goes out. If it's more economical at that life cycle of that vehicle to replace the engine, we would replace the engine as a maintenance item. If it's the vehicle's 2 years away from replacement and it's replaced with a new vehicle or put an engine in and it's just not economical, we would use that reserve.
Okay, so I would recommend that we have some sort of notation that, 150 sounds great, but it's either the most expensive piece of equipment that we have at that time, or it's a number that adjusts with inflation or some other means. So it's not just an arbitrary 150 and 10 years from now we're like, why is it 150?
Yeah, we could do that.
And if it is I assume it's going to be something like a dump truck or a big excavator or something like that. So if that's the case, that's fine. As far as like utilities, I know it's a separate fund, but are we basing off the number of transformers we're using, how many rolls of copper we're using for new development? How do we come up with how many meters we're going to have and so forth?
I don't have the detail, but based on the previous couple of years, we have spent roughly $450,000. For the next 3 to 5 years, we're expecting 3,000 new units. So we need to have the copper, the meters, transformers, and switchgear in stock so we can do the installation.
Okay, so it's based off new development.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect.
Is part of that, Gon's gonna be managed through development fees, or is this all within electric? We're not gonna be doing anything.
Well, right now it'd be electric until we redesign system development.
Right, yeah, because that's, obviously we wanna move to a long term of having it somewhat self-sustaining through system development.
We do charge development fees and electric connection fees, and they go into the fund.
All right,
This is showing the full expense for the materials, but then on the revenue side, we get some fees in.
that's kind of what.
And it's not a black and white calculation, that's what we're looking at now, system development fees, so that we're recovering what we need to without putting ourselves out of the game.
Yep, I understand. Yep, we have to walk that fine line. Yep.
Okay, for meter tech 2, the backflow certification, where are we on eliminating backflow testing? And then thus not needing said certification.
Talking about the I-9.
No, not I-9.
No,
but
backflow.
Right now we do, up until this year, we had required residents that had a sprinkler system
Oh, you're right.
to
Yes.
have their backflow
So that item went to the UAC back in March. Their recommendation is to go ahead, do away with the residential and stay with the commercial. Then, second part of that is, right now we have a deadline of July 1st. We're gonna move it to June 1st because by July 1st, everybody's using their irrigation. Doesn't make sense. Then for customers that do not comply with the June 1st deadline, they'll get their water will be shut off, and it will be a $75 penalty and a reconnection fee of $15. Those fees will be presented hopefully in July, August with the new fee resolution. So I'm waiting for that to present that recommendation.
It was in the works, so, okay,
And we did put a stop on the letters going out.
yes, yeah. And that's great.
Thanks.
Okay, and then the only other thing is, we talk about it every year, let's take the trash program out of the budget. Citywide cleanup. It was a kerfluffle this year, we're doing it, we're not doing it, and then turned out to not work well from everybody I talked to, so,
Does it turn, well, from the standpoint of not working well, is it because of the fact that Gotcha didn't have their act together?
contractor did.
Not from a cost perspective, correct? I mean,
We haven't seen it.
what was the cost breakdown, or do we have that? So the cost ended up being 30, which is
30, and it was for 84 tons, which is lower than last year even.
Yeah.
I think it works out to 350 some per ton, which is less than last year, but the results we got from cheaper were not as effective.
they were definitely not as effective. They were not as organized.
An issue with the contractor, obviously, there's less and less usage of the program. Plus, I still don't need to be paying to take the trash.
Is the usage though down because of the fact that people had made alternate arrangements because they had originally been told that it wasn't going to happen?
Well, that's wonderful, that tells you that they can do it again next year.
Well, and usage also, they're so limited on items, just driving through my neighborhood, I saw people with huge piles out. And when a Hunter junk came through and they did what they were supposed to do, they took 4 items and then left with huge piles of junk because, so that, I don't hate the idea. It would be clear to our citizens that this isn't a program, there's no question, you've gotta deal with it. I do think if it's in the budget, we should do our best to do it. If we wanna remove it, let our citizens know that that service has been removed. 84 tons is not that much.
In the grand scheme of things, no, it's
No.
not. I remember not too long ago, we had 200 tons that were being picked up. Yeah,
So-
that ended up being mostly construction material, because we did add appliances back in, which we anticipated would really up the tonnage, and it did not.
Well, you guys probably know my opinion. I think we should keep it in the budget. I think it's a good service we provide, whether people use it or not. I think just the fact that when we said we weren't gonna do it, we did get a lot of feedback that people really wanted it. So I think we should keep it in the budget.
Can I ask out a second?
I'm with Baldwin on this.
Okay, thank you. And can I ask out a second weekend when
It's much
better?
better.
It was better, but I also believe they needed to come back and get some areas a second.
Yep. But it was much better the second weekend than it was the first. There was still stuff being picked up the Thursday after on the north side of town, if I remember correctly. So,
Did you get a sense that they were interested in doing it next year? Did they say, or did they?
I don't have that information.
we haven't gotten any feedback. Might be good to reach out to them and see. Because if they're not interested in bidding, then it's a moot point. 'Cause we're not gonna be,
Even if they have the capacity to do it, because with 3 trucks, they couldn't do it in 2 or 3 days. So,
yep.
I think they underestimated not only the number of people that participated, but they didn't have compaction capabilities, which really,
The big box trucks, they fill them
Yeah.
up and then.
yep.
Well, and also the types of materials they probably were expecting to pick up may have been scavenged beforehand. That's pretty typical. So
A lot of scrappers out
they
there.
might not have gotten their return out of it. So we'll reach out for some feedback.
Back to that.
That's what I have for now.
For now?
Well,
Until we have the next budget discussion.
we gotta wait till June 15th.
Okay, all right.
I did have one smaller item to add. I was contacted by Project Grad briefly, and I was out of town until yesterday, and I've not had a chance today to get back to them to find out what they're exactly looking for. But they're asking, because of the increased enrollment sizes and graduating class sizes, they're asking for an increase in the amount that we donate yearly. We've done it for a number of years, and I don't know the exact amount they're asking for, but I just want to put this out to get a feel for how we feel.
Well, this year they,
I brought this up before.
I know.
The reason is that, and I love Project Grant, okay? But I have no problem with people donating to it or whatever else, that's your business. But it's not the city's responsibility to take care of the graduating seniors. I.e., every single taxpayer here does not need to take care of this year's graduating class and next year's graduating class and so forth. So there's plenty of people that will donate. There's plenty of people that do for all sorts of other needs and wants. And this is absolutely a want, not a need. And there's plenty of other programs that would be just as good to donate to. But I don't see government as a donation center. So I would remove it from the budget.
so what are we currently budgeted for? Because I know that it wasn't sufficient this year, because they asked us for 2,000?
2 or 3,000.
Do you have any idea?
I'd have to look it up. I don't know off the top of my head.
I think we had 2 in the budget, and they asked for an additional 1,000, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
With something.
yeah, they wanted a
Might have
change.
even went up.
No.
I don't think they had the crowd this year they anticipated.
Oh,
Because I volunteered.
So did I.
I was expecting a lot more kids. So
This is
my entertainment was watching Councilman shoot bastards.
So I thought you said volleyball stuff I was doing, but that was,
Yeah, I didn't see that. I couldn't stop laughing at the shooting bastards.
I was horrible.
And the city of Edgerton donates to this as well.
Yes, they do.
Well, I think we need to know what we're donating and what they would propose, depending on what the numbers are. I, of course, disagree with Councilman Ballman, and I think we should do it, so.
I just look at it as one of those, I mean, it's
It's a community event.
these are people in our community that are.
Build good relationships, et cetera, et cetera.
Even if we keep it, because I get no traction, then I think we should reach out to the school district and have them take it on.
Take on
The
the
entire
Yeah.
fee.
Project
There's
Grad.
no reason for
Or
the
the-
city, a separate taxing entity, to be wasting money into the school's function, when the school could do it, plus they have a larger tax base anyway. Might as well spread it amongst more people if you're gonna tax them.
They probably already are donating,
Well,
right?
they donate like the gym and some, the
Oh,
the janitor services and so forth.
personnel.
And we're only one, I mean, we're not funding the entire thing, we're one,
Oh, gosh.
They are people.
one entity, you know.
It's easily into the 20 to 30,000 range that they spend on Project Grad every year, and it's money well spent from the standpoint of keeping our kids out of trouble.
Right, I mean, it's
Um,
much like an after prom, right? But we don't fund
Absolutely. No, we don't.
Councilman Van Potter, do you have any?
I am in complete agreement with Councilman Baldwin. I think it's a bad precedence to set. At what point do we draw the line?
I think it's always been on a case by case.
Yeah.
I mean, we're also giving money to the Gardner Cemetery, and that's outside of the city. So, that's another. I mean, we could remove that from the budget too, Mark. I mean,
I would, but the city committed to taking care of the dead. And they have no
Yeah.
funding source from themselves. But I have thought about that actually.
So now we're getting a
Well,
little.
maybe we could get more information.
Yes.
On
Yes.
where we're at, and I will find out what they're requesting. I apologize.
Nope, that's good. Sorry.
That's the only question.
Well, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks-
Matt, for
thanks,
all your
Matt.
work, and finance team.
Thank you for the work.
All right. We're gonna move on to public hearings. Public hearing number 1. Hold a public hearing on the proposed modifications to a special benefit district and proposed special assessments to be levied in connection with certain improvements, all in the city of Gardner, Kansas, Tuscan Farm Phase 1A Infrastructure Special Benefit District. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion Shoot, second Baldwin. To open the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? Public hearing is open.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Tyler Ellsworth with QTAC Rock, the city's bond counsel. I have a few comments on the benefit districts, which are the subject of both public hearings this evening and also both assessment ordinances that you'll consider a little bit later. It's not nearly as fun as talking about how to fund the cemetery, so bear with me. But just a few things I think it's worth pointing out regarding the public hearings and the benefit districts tonight. So the purpose of the benefit districts is to consider, the purpose of the public hearings tonight is to consider the proposed assessments and also some proposed modifications to both benefit districts. So these districts were put in place in 2019 at the request of the developer of the Tuscan Farm subdivision, and they're 2 separate benefit districts. The first district we refer to as the Phase 1A district. That finances infrastructure that really benefits primarily the first 40 lots in the subdivision. The second benefit district is referred to as the area-wide benefit district, and that really finances infrastructure that essentially benefits the entirety of the subdivision, which is estimated to be 221 lots when it's fully built out. So the city issued temporary notes in 2019 to provide construction financing for all this infrastructure for both benefit districts. The construction is complete and the temporary notes will come due in October. And so we're at the point now where we're levying the assessments, and staff has worked with the developer over the last few months to finalize costs, and the developer and the property owners actually submitted 2 petitions to make certain modifications to these districts. And so we discussed this at a prior meeting, but just for everyone's benefit, the modifications were to increase the term of the special assessment financing from 15 to 20 years, to change the method of assessment from equally per square foot of platted lot to equally per lot in each benefit district. And there's also a reallocation of a significant portion of the costs from the Phase 1A benefit district containing the first 40 homes to the entire subdivision, because it was felt that there are certain costs that really should more appropriately be allocated to the entire 221 lots. So that's really what's going on with these modifications, and so therefore the subject of this public hearing, the next public hearing, and the assessment ordinances being considered tonight. The other item that I just wanted to bring to your attention is when we put benefit districts in place, there are estimates that we work with from the start. As things get underway and constructed and time goes on, we refine those estimates, and we refine them and we refine them. And so I wanted to bring to your attention a slight adjustment that we've made actually since the notice letters for this public hearing went out, and since your packet was originally published last week. The financing, the long-term financing for this infrastructure is going to be included in a bond issue that we're working with staff on over the next couple of months. Because this is included in financing other projects, the cost of issuance allocable to these 2 benefit district projects is reduced. So instead of financing, say, $1,085,000 to the first 40 lots, that $1,085,000 is reduced to $1,070,000. And with respect to the entire subdivision, whereas we were looking to finance $2,065,000, that's been reduced slightly from $2,065,000 to $2,035,000. So those adjustments are reflected in the copy of the ordinance that you have this evening. Your very capable, very patient city clerk has worked with us to make sure that these are correct. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions either now or later in the evening about these districts.
Thank you. Baldwin,
Motion.
second Deaton. We've closed the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Sorry. Abstained? Public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 2, hold a public hearing on the proposed modifications to a special benefit district and proposed special assessments to be levied in connection with certain improvements, all in the city of Gardner, Kansas, Tuscan Farm Area Wide Infrastructure Special Benefit District. Have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion.
Motion Deaton, second Baldwin. We open a public hearing to receive comments on the proposed modifications to special benefit district and proposed special assessments to be levied in connection with certain improvements, all in the city of Garner, Kansas, Tuscan Farm Area Wide Infrastructure Special Benefit District. Oh, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Abstained? Open the public hearing. No one coming forward. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Move.
Motion Deaton, second Van Potter. That we close the public hearing. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Abstain? Close the public hearing. All right, we'll move to public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. If you wish to come forward, please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. Time clock on your left. No profanity, no personal attacks. With that being said, come forward, state your name and address for the record. Podium is now open. Mr. Case? No? No public comments. We'll move to the consent agenda. Is there a council member who would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Shoot, second Deaton, we approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Abstain? Consent agenda passes. Planning and zoning consent agenda. Is there a council member who would like to remove the item? Is there a motion to approve the planning and zoning consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
So moved.
Motion Deaton, second Baldwin, we approve the planning and zoning consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Abstain? Planning and zoning consent agenda passes. No committee recommendations, no old business. Moving on to new business. New business item number 1. And this is just kind of what we just had the public hearing on. So new business item 1, consider adopting an ordinance amending resolution number 2013, repealing ordinance number 2614, and levying and assessing special assessments on certain lots, pieces, and parcels of land liable for such special assessments to pay the cost of certain improvements in the city. Tuscan Farm Phase 1A Infrastructure Special Benefit District. Finance Director Wolf is back up there.
Bond Counsel Tyler Ellsworth gave a pretty comprehensive overview of basically both of these ordinances coming up. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet and basically say staff recommends adopting an ordinance amending resolution number 2013, repealing ordinance number 2614, and levying and assessing special assessments on certain lots, pieces, and parcels of land liable for such special assessments to pay for the cost of certain improvements in the city. The staff's recommendation to approve that.
Thank you very much. Since this was a public hearing, we'll go straight to council for questions.
I do have one question. It has to do with I understand the distribution of the benefit district, monies with regard to the 207 lots versus the 40 lots. The question I had was really more around, so the extension of the term is basically to lower the cost per parcel, correct? So that they can pass along a smaller amount of money to each one of those homeowners that are developing those lots, correct? Make it a little bit more affordable, Tyler, is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
So it's going to be,
Yeah, it will reduce the annual payment. There will be 20 annual payments instead of 15.
Correct.
So there will be an additional interest cost that's incurred.
Yep.
But the benefit really is, it was staff's opinion and the developer's opinion that by lengthening this to 20 years, the annual payments become more affordable.
Okay.
Right.
And that's really more to offset materials cost increases, other types of issues that are around the market right now.
Right, right. Anything that we can do to reduce sort of the monthly or the annual cost on these homeowners was felt to be a
And
good
that was the
solution.
primary motivation for this.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Do we have a motion?
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Baldwin, that we adopt ordinance number 2732, an ordinance amending resolution number 2013 of the city of Gardner, Kansas, repealing ordinance number 2614 of the city, and levying and assessing special assessments on certain lots, pieces, and parcels of land liable for such special assessments to pay the cost of certain improvements in the city Tuscan Farm Phase 1A Infrastructure Special Benefit District. Clerk?
Councilmember Van Potter,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Shute,
Yes. Ordinance number 2732 passes. And very similar, new business item number 2. Consider adopting an ordinance amending resolution number 2012, repealing ordinance number 2613, and levying and assessing special assessments on certain lots, pieces, and parcels of land liable for such special assessments to pay the cost of certain improvements in the city Tuscan Farm area-wide infrastructure special benefit district.
This item has also already been covered, so it's staff's recommendation that you approve the proposed ordinance.
Again, this is a public hearing, so we'll go straight to council. Any comments, questions? Yeah, these are great. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Baldwin, to adopt ordinance number 2733, an ordinance amending resolution number 2012 of the city of Gardner, Kansas, repealing ordinance number 2613 of the city and levying and assessing special assessments on certain lots, pieces, and parcels of land liable for such special assessments to pay the cost of certain improvements in the city Tuscan Farm area-wide infrastructure special benefit district. City clerk?
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Shute,
Yes.
Councilmember Van Potter,
Yes.
Ordinance number 2733 passes. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Matt. All right, pretty fast. So, move on to council updates. We will start with Chief Belcher, if you're still okay over there.
Yeah, apologize, I had a chair malfunction there.
You got the trick chair tonight, huh?
We need to put new
Goes
chairs in
around.
the budget item.
Sharon jumped more than I did, and I was the one who almost fell. We have a snow cone with a cop this Thursday from 4 to 6 at Dollar General, so come out and enjoy some of the festivities out there. I know we'll have Officer Anderson with Canine Zoo, so we'll have a drone and a bicycle, one of our patrol bicycles out there, so come out and get some snow cones.
City clerk?
nothing for me tonight.
Thanks, Director.
Nothing tonight.
City attorney? Nothing for me. City administrator?
So over the past several months, we've been waiting for a case to work its way through the court system. And it has to do with annexation and boundary agreements between cities. So there was a dispute between Spring Hill and Olathe that went to the district court, that was appealed to the Kansas Supreme Court, and they heard that case, I believe it was 2 weeks ago. So the reason I bring it up is because it's a potential threat for us. There's the potential that our boundary and annexation agreements with Olathe and DeSoto could get thrown out. There's always the potential they could come back and change how they're done or the term they're done. But if this case, if the boundary agreements get overruled, there's a threat to our planning boundaries. So I just has there been any discussions initiated with our friends in Olathe and DeSoto on the potential ramifications of this?
There's been broader discussions among the group, but nothing specific with either one.
He's probably trying to keep everything close to the vest right now.
Yes. That's all I have.
And did, I kinda asked you this earlier, but, was there any sense of direction on this, or Ryan, I don't know if you had any sense of?
Well, they ruled at the district court level that they were unconstitutional. So that was an appeal up to the Kansas Supreme Court. I watched the hearing. I mean, I got a sense that at least a few of them were not in favor because it would impact other interlocal agreements. Because the argument is basically you can't bind one council, a council in the future. One council can't bind a future council.
Oh my
So that
goodness.
would have wide-ranging impact.
Oh, yeah, service agreements for like fire.
I mean, Ryan, they could put time limits on it, they could, I mean, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of things that they could put provisions on for us to do in the future, but if they invalidate the ones we have with, no interim process to, transition, we could be impacted,
Yeah, that tenet that governing bodies can't bind future governing bodies has been a tenet in Kansas municipal law for a long time. There are, like in terms of contracts with vendors, providers, and the Kansas cash basis law, and budget laws kind of speak to that and make specific allowances. I mean, that's why you can, you're only supposed to do contracts that you have money in the budget this year to cover. And so that's basically an extension of that rule. But yeah, I mean, where you've got these annexation agreements that have been done 30, 40 years ago, there's really no monetary expenditure.
Exactly, there's a fiscal note associated with it, that's what I was thinking. So I don't understand why that would be treated the same, but.
Well, that's what the city of Spring Hill argued to the district court, and the success of that order would stay pending the Supreme Court hearing.
Anything else? Utilities Director Gunther.
Nothing tonight.
Ms. Adrian.
Well, we got a slow start to baseball, softball, but we are playing ball tonight, first time in a week, so happy about that. And then the other thing I'll just note is we are still hiring lifeguards. In our pool, if you're still seeking any, so I can try to pull some strings for you guys wanna come out and work for us. We're actually running a class this week with about 10 over there.
You would not want to see me in a Speedo.
She didn't say you had to wear one. You could have jumped on that.
We'll provide
Any-
something against that.
Yikes.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell?
Nothing to
We'll start with Councilmember Van Potter.
Nothing tonight.
Councilmember Deeb.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Councilmember Roberts.
Okay, I have two things. The first one, how is Main Street going? Do we have an update of what, I mean, I see stuff, but I didn't know if it was an official update or anything.
We should actually see some concrete go in this week on the first section there. Weather has been pretty bad up to now.
Okay. And my second one, I've had several people reach out to me about pickleball courts and if we can add lines to our existing tennis courts. And I kind of did some Googling, and it seems like it's a possibility, but I'm not an expert, so I said I would ask.
I know that has been done on
Yeah.
several courts, but if they're referring to the high school.
Yeah.
tennis courts,
I mean, so we'd have to work with them,
Right.
obviously.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if we worked on that, because I guess pickleball is like a thing right now. And that would provide another service or an activity for our community, and it didn't seem like it was that crazy of a cost. It's just relining, and you actually line them in a different color, so the tennis people know that, you know, they're the white lines and the pickleball blue lines, etc., or whatever the color is. So I didn't know if that was something that we wanted to maybe get with the school and see if maybe they've already investigated it or
We
what.
can ask them. I mean, they're
Okay.
there.
I know, and they, yeah, but
Yeah, but we can reach out.
evidently, like I said, it's a thing, so I said I would ask. So, thank you. That's it.
Vice President.
I was honored to be a part of the ribbon cutting for the Farmers Market 2022 edition, 4th year, 5th market, and there was a great turnout out there. It was the best weather we'd had in weeks, so that probably helped to push turnout a little bit. There was an issue during that event, and probably something we need to take to Parks and Rec. There was an issue with a pedestal out there, lost power, and they lost a lot of their vendors were not able to do their like the popcorn and stuff like that because of the fact that the pedestal lost power. So
Lost or never had?
no, it lost power in the middle of the event, probably because it drew too many amps and probably cut the breaker. So I don't know if there's anything that can be done on those pedestals to try to fix that problem for future farmers markets, because they will have more of those needs out there. They have blenders for the smoothies. They've got the snow cone machines and the popcorn machines and their electric griddles and all that other stuff, and they want to try to utilize that. So maybe work with Gons to see if we can maybe look at that circuit to see if we have enough capacity on that. But other than that, things were great, and we're looking forward to a great season. And I know there were several members of the council that were there as well.
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
I was also told at the event that there was wasps' nests or bees' nests
Yeah, in the shelter.
and we need them sprayed or whatever. So. Sorry, I just
No,
added on to
no,
that.
that's fine. No, I remember that as well, just to mention. And they're looking forward to expanding the market, probably first into a larger portion of Cornerstone Park, but ultimately they're really excited about getting their dedicated, that covered space towards City Hall. So would love to start to see some movement on that. I know EDEC's been talking about that extensively, and I know David Knopick's not here, he's on vacation. We'd like to pursue that. In addition, I know we've got no meetings until I think August, but once we have those meetings starting up again, I think we're going to be pushing that pretty hard.
I agree with Steve. It's a very nice event. It's good to get people to the city. It's good for the citizens. It's good for the vendors. It's just very well attended.
It's part of who we are too,
Yeah.
as a community. So.
It totally is.
So that's all I had.
Council President.
Don't have anything
I guess that means.
And a little flourish of sound effects there.
And can I ask me this question earlier? Are we still on track with 56 as far as the completion date and all that?
Yeah.
Clarify that.
So, I mean, with weather and there's been some design delays, my guess is we're going to butt up against too cold of weather at some point for them to put further concrete in without it being a problem. I would expect it to go into kind of post-winter finish.
Really.
So we've talked about this. What will likely happen is they will stop at Moonlight at the intersection, and then in the spring do from Moonlight over to the entrance. So
The
it
trails?
won't be blocked off for the winter. They'll finish it, wait for better weather, and then restart the project. So the weather's just, I mean, they get to a point where if they can get the AB3 down like they did over by Moonlight, the water's fine, they can get the asphalt down, the concrete, but every time they get it graded, it just rains and pools, and then they have to redo it.
And it was going to be a rush to get it in before we got to too cold of weather in that November timeframe anyway. So, it's just looking increasingly likely that we'll end up
And
So,
they did start 167th Street today. They tore out the southeast corner. They're putting an ADA ramp in, and they're going to start the Millennium project.
okay. So, long and short of it is that we'll get the section between Sycamore, or I should say Mulberry, between Mulberry and Moonlight done.
That's pretty certain.
South, eastbound and westbound?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's the part that was really bad, so, as much as I don't like the fact we're still gonna have a bad section of concrete between Moonlight and New Century Parkway, it's better than only having half of it done, so.
Thank you. And I've got nothing else. In no executive session, have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Baldwin, we adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.